Okay, we are all here, I think. Please not coming.
Yep.
Yeah, we're good. Zoom. Just wanted to see something, Jim. There is a print on mine there at the bottom.
Maybe I missed it.
Okay, well, doesn't really matter. Let me zoom.
I was able to print it eventually, so.
Can people see this?
Copy.
I just want to get the bulk that's fitting actually all of it on there. Cindy, are you an expert on the question you asked me that I explained? Would you like to get into that?
Would I like to get into the explanation of why some of these look too good to be true?
Right.
Yeah. So my initial thought was the
specific question on whether or not the how did you put it?
So Porter Electric appears to be the lowest gross system cost and the highest power generation. And I said, well, doesn't that make it obvious that you would pick them? And then you explained that the estimated generated power, the numbers can be a little soft, and sometimes they're a bit optimistic.
That's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, that's really.
I don't think that's quite how I said it, but
So let me put this marker on the board first. Because this is not facing due south at an ideal pitch, it can't produce more than its nameplate. An east-west system will never produce as much power as its nameplate. So if you have a 43 kilowatt system, it ain't ever producing 43 kilowatts. It's impossible.
Much less more than that.
Yeah. It will generally produce 80 or 90% of that if you're doing really well.
So if that seems to be common knowledge or something, a reasonable marker, they should know that as well.
Well, so there's two ways to look at this. And I think Paul and I said to each other the two things. He said, well, they're just estimates. It doesn't matter that much. And it doesn't, right?
As long as we understand what they are.
Yeah, as long as you understand that they're not real.
From my perspective. Yeah, these are models.
Right.
They can be manipulated in any way that the vendor likes.
That's problematic for me.
Well, we're not going to. Well, that is a different issue.
Right. Well, so that's my point. If you're saying you're going to produce more than the nameplate, you're either very casual about your estimates, or you're trying to snow somebody.
That's my problem.
So as someone who has bought systems with high estimates and someone who depends on knowing what a system's going to produce, I take estimates really seriously. They mean everything about how the system is going to produce. So from my perspective, if you're putting a really big number on it, you're not being honest with anybody.
Right. I mean, generally.
So Jack, does that mean the only two that are even plausible are Maine's Electric and Revision? Because they both say an array size of 43 and then generating less than that, 41 and 38 respectively?
Yes.
Okay.
What these numbers would typically be used for is to come up with a good break-even time frame.
Right.
And that's why it looks good for the vendor to inflate them. But we're somewhat knowledgeable, and that's not going to swing us. Let's step back a minute. Where we left off at the meeting last week, I guess, we had decided that the first thing we were going to look at was the layout of the arrays. We have an idea about what makes sense and what doesn't, and we don't have confidence in vendors that are giving us a layout that we don't think is good. That knocks out 3 vendors right off the bat. It knocks out 603, Harmony, and Ace. Beyond that, we have, with Porter, they didn't investigate the town hall enough to know that this is a single phase building. That's sort of a strike against them. It's not a huge deal, but that combined with their estimated generation is a big concern. So that limits this quite a bit already. Beyond that, I think the issues that we want to be concerned with and take into account are Jack has a pretty good idea of what equipment, at least what equipment that's been on the market for a while, is reliable and what is not. Matt has had some personal experience with that. I tried to check online to see what I could find so that we weren't dealing with anecdotal information. I found a fairly large scale installer in Australia who has installed hundreds of these systems as well as hundreds of SMA systems and has had bad experience with SolarEdge in particular. So we do want to take that into account. We obviously have to take cost into account. We want to take reliability as much as we can. And the reason I bring that up a little bit separately is that Granite State Solar is recommending Tesla inverters for their system. These are new systems, not much of a track record. Jack, you can tell us what you sort of have heard as scuttlebutt.
Yeah, I heard today that, and this may be just California, it might not be regional. I mean, one of the issues with Tesla is their penetration getting past the West Coast has been minimal until just like within the last year or two, they penetrated the market with the batteries. I've never seen an inverter, but I heard today from somebody who's talking to one of the distributors that they have experience with people waiting 6 to 8 months for repairs on Tesla. But again, that's anecdotal. I don't know. I know nothing about them. I think it's fair for me to say.
So I have one more criteria that I'm taking into account here. The Tesla systems, there's going to be 5 inverters in that system. A lot of the other ones have multiple smaller SolarEdge. I don't have that. Do I have that quantified? Yes. So Revision was going to use 3 SolarEdge inverters. Porter, once again, we don't know. Mains is, I don't know if that's a single Sunny Boy, but they were the only ones.
So here, let me. That's 4 Sunny Boys. That's probably one inverter. This 10s that then get.
You realize that
He's got 4 10s.
Yeah,
which is
they're kind of knocked out. So here's what I was going to bring up, Jack, and you can fill me in on this. Mains was the only one that said they would do an indoor installation of the inverters.
Mhm.
It appears to me that with 5 inverters, I don't believe there's any way you're going to fit those into the electrical.
no, but 4 will.
4 will?
Yeah.
Okay. I would much prefer to have as much equipment inside as possible.
Yeah.
This equipment is made to be placed in the outdoors. That doesn't mean it's a good idea if you have an alternative. So that's sort of the long and short of the considerations that I think we need to take into account. Rob, what I would like some input from you on is, what I think we should do is in the recommendation that we make to the select board, I think we should have a primary, and then we should have one or more secondaries and give our reasons why it's not our primary.
So have you created a rubric to score these?
I have not a formal one.
Maybe that would be an objective way to try to, knowing the criteria that you think are important.
Right.
Well, it sounds like we sort of do have a rubric. One is don't lie about what energy you can generate. And 2 is, it sounded like the type of inverter and how many was an important criteria. And then cost, right?
Cost
So those
has
are-
to-
The arrangement of the arrays, right?
Yep. Right.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, no, I think you have the criteria. I think that
Yeah.
you put them in like a table so you can score them. So, I mean, I think you guys probably already, you'll fill us in, but have an idea of what you think is probably going to be the best option.
I think we do.
And so, but having that in a table is going to be helpful. As I recall, when you presented to the select board, the main, I think it was only Jim that had a concern, and the concern was kind of what you guys already talked about, the fact that you can't get as much electricity out of the system as you say you can.
Right.
And so being honest about, or what would they can expect to get, I didn't know if any of these vendors did any decent job showing or explaining the calculations or.
Revision. Revision's price sort of knocks them out.
Well, they really jumped out as a.
They're not lying.
But
Yeah.
their production numbers are good.
And we
Can
can,
I, can
what we can
I
do,
add something on the criteria?
yeah,
What about perhaps weighting the criteria? So a 5 would be the most important, down to maybe a 1 to be the least important criteria, to give it some weight in terms of the rubric.
we can do that, or I can do that. But the fact of the matter is that I think we know what our first and, maybe not necessarily the second and third are, but I will probably be, in all honesty, I would probably be manipulating those numbers to fit what I have in mind.
Understood.
Well, then-
I think it's actually a rubric that's in your mind, and that's valid.
Right.
So, there's nothing nefarious about it.
Yeah, and so I think it's fairly obvious to me, well, maybe it's obvious to you which one I think is coming out first. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is that Jack still has some concerns about his participation in this, so he will not be voting. He's
Okay.
not participating in the bid, and he's not voting on the selection. But he is here for technical advice for any questions that we have. And he may give his opinion.
Ethics?
Yeah, I know. Frightening.
Well, I suppose you know most of these people.
I know a lot of them. There's some I don't know. But I know most of
But
them.
anyway, then.
Can you educate me on
Give some bias.
on the panel information? Is that relevant at all to this discussion?
As I say to almost every customer, I can put a blindfold on you and give you a dart and walk you into a room lined with panels and almost guarantee you'll hit a good one. I mean, there's a listing called Tier 1, which is basically
Right.
the investment community has decided that this panel is good. It's really, you got to work really hard to not buy a Tier 1 panel. I mean, they're all good. The only thing in this case is, I think we specifically want black on black panels, and I don't know that anybody. I know Maine's did, but I don't know if anybody else mentioned that.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, yeah, I want black on black because it just looks better.
I don't know anything about inverters, but you talked about exterior versus interior. Is there any fire safety concerns about inverters? Is there any kind of heat generation? Anything? But anything that?
They're not fired.
Okay, great.
But a consideration that to bear in mind though is it can be an attractive nuisance. And we're on the edge of a residential area, it's kind of little kids. And if this is exposed to the outside, yeah.
And there were a lot of windows. You remember when we walked back there are a lot of windows and doors.
Yeah.
So there's not a clear space on that outside wall like there is in the utility room.
Do they ever make noise inside,
And
like
a fan.
buzzing?
They do buzz, but nothing that isn't already
Yeah.
present. Yeah, nothing that you would bother you.
Just curious, you don't want office staff to all of a sudden say, "That's the noise."
Yep.
That's good voices, I hear you.
It's giving me cancer.
Annual service.
Yep.
Can we pick anybody we want to do the annual service, or should we stick with the one that installed?
Well, you should get the first 5 years from the installer anyway. Because in order to get the New Hampshire rebate, which on 43 kilowatts is $5,000. It's $5,000 or $6,000, right? Something like that.
By the way, the reason I did not put those entries in the table is because it's pretty much the same for all of them, so
Yeah, so
there was no.
So what you really want to happen once a year is for someone to come in and open the inverters, torque all the connections, go into the circuit panel, or in this case, the generator panel, torque those connections. And measure the string voltage and stuff, just to make sure that everything's working.
What about the warranties? I know you put warranties on the table, but
Also, a standard inverter warranty is usually 12 years. Panel warranty is funny because there's a mechanical warranty, which is about 10 years, and then there's a performance warranty, which is 80 to 85% remaining at the end of 25 years.
Mhm.
I don't know of anybody who's ever collected on one of those. But the other thing is that in doing this for 10 years, owning thousands and thousands of panels, I've only ever replaced 2. They just don't go bad.
it's great.
I mean, the only issue here would be, if someone in the back, if a big tree fell and hit it, that's the most, impact is the most likely reason for panels to fail.
And what about the brand or make of the panels? Is there?
Again, tier 1 panels.
Yeah.
Like I said,
all
like
of
full
these,
dark.
Yeah, right.
Just
all of the panels that have been specified here are rated very high.
Yeah, great.
And none of these guys has quoted for the snow issue.
No one quoted for the snow. The only one that mentioned it was Maine's and said it was not included in the bid.
Yeah, it was $4,500 or
They
something.
at least get points in my book for mentioning.
Yes.
Well, it really should be done in this corner here.
I thought someone else mentioned something about the snow.
Revision mentioned it when they were here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't
Yeah.
put that in there.
Right, I am too.
You didn't see it in there.
I didn't look carefully,
Yeah.
but no, I did glance through and I didn't see it.
And I don't remember who it was, but I remember seeing something about snow.
Well, the main thing had snow.
Snow guards. Revision has need for snow guards.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I didn't,
So it was revision that mentioned it in the quote.
and Maine's did as well.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what we're talking about right now. I see under Maine's Electric, it says snow retention by others not included in price. I don't know what that means.
The snow can fall off the solar panels and fall under the ground.
Sidewalk.
Oh, okay. So it's basically saying don't kill people who are walking under it with the snow. It's not our problem. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
What it means is the developers are suggesting putting up devices at the bottom of the roof to prevent the snow from falling off.
Diverters.
Got it. Okay. So they're saying we didn't include that in the price, but it's something you should think about.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And so when they state that it'll be over the South Conference entrance, or the conference entry west,
Sidewalk
with
west
that,
of the door all the way down to the corner. I think both that corner of the roof, right where the sidewalk is.
So
Yeah, Dan, those are my notations. They just gave us a layout.
These panels.
oh, okay, yeah.
Inverter that would be somehow manufactured with them or underneath them or.
Well, so you have a conflicting problem here, right? You don't want your panels to be covered with snow,
Yeah,
ideally.
I want to shed.
So the only reason to use snow guards is you're putting in a place where you have sidewalks and you don't want it to fall on something. So in that case, you're making the decision to force the snow to stay on the roof.
Or
It's a trade-off.
pull it off in a controlled manner. And I would actually talk to our facilities guy and talk about someone raking the snow off of those panels.
in revision, both sides of the peak have solar panels all the way, well, most of the way down through.
Yeah, well, so over here, I
Actually,
don't think it's likely that the panels will get all the way down the roof. I think there'll be 10 or 20 feet of shingles. So
They
that-
show them
Yeah, I don't think,
almost probably 2/3 of the way down or so.
well, it depends what layout you pick. I think if we,
That's the layout they have. in-
So this is the revision.
Yeah, right there.
Um,
But that's 2/3 of the way down the building.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, I assume the ridge is in the center. I actually don't know why they
Somewhere
put them.
else I thought they.
I don't know
showed
why
the
they
ridge in
put
the
the
center.
But let's keep in mind, revision's price basically knocks them out of this.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, why don't we look at one of the others just for comparison?
So is it kind of Maine's and Granite State that we think make the most sense?
Granite
Those,
State overestimated their generation by quite a bit.
they did.
Sorry.
Yeah, those were the two that I was going to say is primary and secondary, would be my votes.
Now, why would you choose revision? I mean, revision overestimated too. So the only one that's real in terms of the numbers is mains.
They did, but they didn't radically overestimate.
Yeah, so
They
they're,
underestimated.
no, they're under the array size.
Yeah, under the array size.
The array size is 43 and they estimated 41, so that's
Yeah,
reasonable.
the problem is they're charging 20,000 more than mains.
Angela, I guess what you really
Well-
want to look at is this normalized number of kilowatt hours per kilowatt. That's where you would say, were they overestimating or not?
I thought revisions calculations had a number of incentives that created quite a discount.
They all have the same discounts, Dan. We are eligible for the same discounts from each of the vendors. So we're
Okay.
really not taking that into account.
I thought revision had a couple of extras that others didn't, but I take your word for that.
Well, if they quoted some other, there was one organization that quoted a REAP, possibly, I think that was Harmony.
Yeah.
But realize that revision cannot get us any grants that someone else can't get us. So anyone, it's up to us to make sure that all the grants that we're eligible for are applied for.
Who does the grants, the rebates, do we or do the vendors do the paperwork?
Vendors.
And are they all comparable? I mean, that's really important, right? To be getting that extra money back. So are they all the same as far as being able to do that and
Well, I don't,
resourceful?
I can assume that they do the same things that we do. I mean, my experience with contractors is we all do the permits, we all apply for the rebates. We all apply the interconnection, we all apply for the interconnection stuff. As the town should have to do nothing but sign some paper.
But we should do due diligence and make sure that we are aware of all the
Right.
rebates we're entitled to. And if we think that there's a rebate that is not being applied for, we instruct the vendor to apply for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So,
I'm pretty sure that REAP is not for municipal, because the one that I'm applying for was as a LLC serving a municipality.
okay,
But we're trying to get a hold of the contact at REAP to figure that out.
okay.
So I don't know.
And Dan, if you want to look through revisions and make a list of the rebate entities that they're talking about, it would be interesting to see if they have some that are not already stated by other vendors, and we'll definitely look into it.
Yeah, well, they have the investment tax credit, 37,000. That's probably pretty standard, and they also have a rebate grant estimate of 6840, and so revisions net comes down from 124K to 80K.
Yeah, those are the state and federal rebates. Those are the very well-established rebates we know about.
Okay, that's it for them.
Allowance and also utility applications and upgrade allowance at $500. So they took out $2,800 or so of allowances that they evidently had in their original bid. Deducted them under investment summary.
Yep.
For some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of mentions of allowances that were made in a few places. I'm blanking on what another one was,
Oh,
but they're
I
small.
wondered what that's.
Your phones.
It's-
Oh, is it beeping? It's gonna explode.
I'm not sure what it is.
That was pretty much everything I had in terms of the criteria that we were going to go for. Are we ready to make a vote on what we would like to do here?
Do you need my vote?
No.
So I think what we need to do, I think we've all talked about the criteria. I think we're on the same page about what's important. Can you do just a real quick summary of the first and second choice and why their criteria elevated them to those?
Sure. So in the first place would be Maine's Electric. Their price, although not the lowest, is in the reasonable range. They have a preferred equipment utilization with the SMA inverters. And their estimates are the most realistic of any of the vendors involved. The workmanship warranty is not as good as some of the other vendors. And, 5 years is probably good for working out the bugs in the system. But it would have been nice if they were to have been competitive in that sense with some of the other vendors. The only really impressive number that's outstanding in terms of warranties is that SolarEdge does offer an extended 25-year warranty. But one of the issues with SolarEdge is that getting the replacement equipment sounds to be extremely problematic.
Well, so just to make a point on that, we looked at this extended warranty thing a couple of years ago, trying to figure out whether we should buy extended warranties for everything. The cost of extended warranty is the cost of an inverter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you're just prepaying on the inverter.
right.
Okay.
Now,
In second place is Granite State Solar. Sorry.
before you move along, Maine's on theirs, they have looks like 2 panels all the way down the whole length of the backside of the building up near the peak. Do you see that as a problem or no? Okay.
Honestly, I think the layouts are preliminary anyway.
Okay.
Whoever you pick is going to go up there with a tape measure and get really fussy about it and go up with a solar device and walk around that back roof and find the best place.
The
I
issue,
know you thought the front here was a good spot right over here.
Well, you need them both. There's not enough room over here to do everything.
Yeah, well, they don't show anything on this
Yeah,
right here.
let me bring it.
So,
that little roof is.
okay, all right.
I mean, at some point, it's a question between, if you can put 3 panels up here, that might be good for production, but it might be bad for wiring.
The issue with the back roof is shading. We have a line of trees back
Yeah.
there. I mean,
That are gonna get taller.
is there a morning versus afternoon preference in terms of exposure?
No.
No. Okay, you're just as likely to have clouds in the morning as the evening.
Mhm.
Okay. I wasn't sure. of that.
Is there any incentive to get rid of any trees or?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, but is it in
Is there an
the,
opportunity? Probably not.
yeah,
Now, we've cut about what we should be cutting in the back.
Should or should not.
We shouldn't go any further. There's a buffer in this lot, a forest buffer.
Okay.
so it's maxed pretty much.
It's max.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be a bad thing if they came over Saturday with a chainsaw.
We can't do a significant amount of cutting back there. So,
Okay, well, we will keep the panels as high up on the ridge as we can, minimize shading and optimize beyond that.
today it was getting sun on that top section, in the afternoon.
And this is February.
So this is February, the sun's low.
Right.
So,
Ideally, that's what we really want to do before we all decide how they're gonna be mounted, is come out here at 10 o'clock in the morning when it's sunny, noon when it's sunny, 3 when it's sunny, and actually look.
Yeah.
You can measure that stuff, but there's nothing better than actually looking.
sun is coming up now, but,
Yeah.
this time of year, it's getting higher, but
Right.
it's still not very hot.
The sun tracking tools that use the cameras on, various pieces of equipment, including phones, are not extremely accurate, but they're useful. So the second place one, in my opinion, would be Granite State Solar. They are a little bit high on their normalized values, not terrible. Could be better. The main issue with them is, so they're not using an inverter company that we know we would like to avoid. On the other hand, They're using one that we really have no idea of the track record about. The other issue with them is that their implementation would almost certainly require that the inverters would be outside, which I regard as a negative.
If you were to ask Granite State to go, would they be able to go with Solar Edge versus Tesla?
We wouldn't want that because Solar Edge is a known negative.
Oh, I don't
Other
know.
one.
I meant whichever one.
Well, they've
Is
got
it
some-
Mains? Is it,
Sunny
The
board.
SMA,
what is the one the Mains is using?
SMA.
Okay, so but to use that one.
I don't believe that we should try to instruct a vendor to use equipment that they're not accustomed to.
So these guys normally install Enphase. This was kind of surprised to me to see that because they have been doing Enphase only for years.
The concern I have is because it hasn't really come to the East Coast very much, that the service, 6 to 8 months lag time, that's a worry.
No,
Well, maybe we just do one recommendation.
But I think you put it as secondary, but maybe there could be a conversation, because I don't think Tesla's necessarily cheap, right? So you could probably.
Well, if our first recommendation doesn't happen, then there's nothing that says we can't reconvene
Yeah.
and consider our
Yeah.
options on it, even so much as going to get additional votes.
Their gross system cost is the lowest. Yeah, Granite State's is the lowest. I'm kind of sorry that they didn't quote us in phase. That would have been,
Well, then they would be the lowest. That may be why they put in Tesla. Yeah, Enphase will be 20-30% more.
What's in phase? I'm not familiar.
They're micro-
microinverters. So they're mounted on the panels, but they're very reliable.
in our quest here, the town of Barrington is requesting bids for roof mounted solar system approximately 43 kW. We've asked them to quote for 43 kW and they didn't. They quoted 38,
That's-
39.
One.
So they didn't follow the request to start with.
I think the reason that they did that, this is a guess, but
Well, everybody else is very close to 40.
so the reason I think they did that is they wanted to fit all of the panels on these two exposures.
You don't think it has anything to do with the size of the inverters?
Oh, it might.
Yeah.
It might. Yeah, I don't know.
So I guess I don't know how we consider them second when they didn't follow the criteria of the RFP.
It's a good point. Well, we did say approximate.
Yeah, but 39,
They're low. They're low.
they're low. They're close.
So
Could
Yeah.
they physically get to 45? I mean, is it possible? With a
Well,
group
based
that-
on their inverter count and the size, you need a sixth inverter. Which would then throw the price up another, whatever.
So,
I don't know anything about the Tesla inverters.
Well, no, but the array size, well, wait a minute.
They're
Well,
nine.
I take that
Other
back.
than same
I take that, no, it's probably,
configuration except for the back.
95.
yeah, see, it doesn't say how big the Tesla inverter is.
No. And I don't know how big it is, and there's not a lot of information out there.
so is it possible, vendors aside for the moment, given the amount of roof we had to work with, is it possible for them to actually comply with what we asked them to estimate?
Yeah, you can get to 43 kilowatts, sure.
I mean, if nothing else, they could use the other entryway as an additional.
I mean, Maine's is at 42, Revision is 42.5, Porter's at 43.7,
Right.
43, yeah,
So that's possible to do.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's
question,
it's related to the size of the inverter.
so why didn't these guys go like, I'm in favor of choosing Maine's electric, but why didn't they go to 45?
My guess would be is that they have an over optimistic estimate on production and they thought we didn't need it.
It's kind of-
I mean, what we asked for was
But we-
38,000 kilowatt hours.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
right.
So
Yeah,
You
we
said
asked that they meet the needs of the
that they
building.
won't produce
for annual
over 90% of what you have.
Right.
So what they have for 41, whatever it is not valid.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, that 38.6 ought to be, their production ought to be somewhere around 35.
So we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yes. No, good point.
Well, if we did knock them down, then who else would be running?
We just have one at that point.
In my mind, I think you could put revision as the second and it's just cost more. Because that's the other more realistic one.
True, yeah, theirs is, I mean, theirs is other than the fact that they're using Solar Edge, which we would prefer not to use.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that with 3 of those units, I don't know, did you happen to see if they said where they were going to put them?
I didn't remember.
But
That
they
was
could put
revision.
them inside if they've got only 3 units.
You're talking about revision. right?
Yeah,
I don't remember them saying that.
There's no reason why they couldn't go inside.
right.
There's only 3 of them.
Do you know if any of them have done municipal projects or if they've given a portfolio or references?
All of them have given references and all of them have portfolios.
And I think all of them had municipal projects too.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Maybe, I didn't look carefully at that, I don't know.
Has anyone called any municipal reference?
Not yet, until I wanted to wait until we had a decision on the vendor, and then we would call it.
And so we'll make a decision here. Then would you call a reference before we present to the select
Oh,
board?
yeah,
Okay.
I mean. With Maine's, it's kind of a weird situation since Jack works with them normally and. But,
But I'm not bidding.
No.
I'm not taking any money.
so do
Maybe
we,
Jack works with them because they're the best. I mean,
so have we reached a decision here? Can we take a vote on submitting only one recommendation? I actually can't make a motion, can I? Can someone make a motion, that we go with one recommendation to the select board?
I move we go with one recommendation to the select board.
Second,
Seconded.
votes,
Aye.
Raj?
I,
So we will make only one recommendation.
Do we want to make any disclosure statement or anything about the fact that Jack refrained from bidding and
Yeah.
voting?
Yes.
Even though he was connected.
Absolutely.
In capital
Casper.
letters.
Yeah.
If he's not voting, wouldn't the alternate vote? So,
Well, we had enough that he didn't need to, we could. You want to vote?
And your connection
I'm
with
just saying,
Maine
it's
does
better to
not
have a
make
full
any-
slate.
He just worked with.
That's,
I have to do tons of.
you're good. Can you tell us
Most-
once
mostly
again
because-
what your experience with your system was? I know you had a lot of failures, but I don't remember the specifics.
The optimizers are going underneath the panel.
They consistently get
Those Solar Edge, and I have 26 panels and I've been
And I also would ride her.
15 of them.
In what timeframe? In what timeframe?
I've
value
done
to
the last 3 to 4 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's-
And everything else is great.
Yeah, they have.
The repair guys a little slow, but
Show first thing.
yeah.
He doesn't have any pictures.
Okay,
Town of Meredith Fire Station.
are you looking at
Community
names?
Center. Page,
I'll bring that up.
State House.
Those are all projects they did for me because they don't have any pictures of any.
Town of Bethlehem Library.
And all
Town
the municipal stuff.
and School. Town of Bethlehem.
That's okay.
Was that Dana?
It's probably, all I saw was a hand.
So that's the,
The library.
That's not the library.
There's nothing else in here.
Way down the bottom.
all the way at the end, I think. there's probably stuff.
All over the end, there's quite a few projects they show.
Okay.
The Barrington Power Building's nice.
So that's the Meredith Fire Station, Meredith Community Center, Meredith Skate Shed, Bethlehem Library, Bethlehem Town Garage, Bethlehem Elementary. That's a big one. That's 300 something. Kearsarge Indian Museum. Has anybody ever been to that?
Yeah,
It's very cool. In Warner.
I don't think I've since they
Wow.
put the solar. Yeah,
Um,
it's a neat museum.
that's Effingham Elementary.
This is really exciting. So much solar going on.
Yeah, that's local grocer in Conway.
Oh.
And the Vaughn Center, which is on Main Street of Conway. That's the Mount Washington Auto Road.
Okay.
That one is Wolfboro Electric.
What is it?
Yeah,
That's the
Wolfboro
electric
Electric.
department in Wolfboro.
Oh,
That's interesting.
He's got some tree cutting to do. That's
Brunswick?
Farm,
no, that's in Knowltonboro. One below it is Brunswick.
Wait, what?
Denison Farm, is that what this is?
Something like that. It's an apple farm.
Oh, I
Davison
see what
Farms.
you're saying.
So were those spread out just because they had the room?
Well, so no, that roof is interesting because it pitches to the north, the downhill. So they're
Oh,
they're tilted up
pitched in
and
the
spread out.
opposite direction.
Just
Interestingly, that one has a white roof, and we put one entire inverter in with bifacial panels to try and see if there was a difference.
Oh, real? Yeah. No different.
I see.
And it's a white roof.
Yeah.
How far off the roof? were
Well,
they?
that's what I've been told, that the aperture for that to work is like 8 feet or something.
Okay,
It works
yeah.
better on ground mounts. That's here.
So how much are you involved in like these projects that they're showing?
I sold them all. But I mean, this is funny because they don't have any commercial projects they've done because they've done them all for me.
And that mains bid is, that doesn't reflect the credits. So that should come in even lower than the 106.
Oh, yeah, no,
$6,000.
I mean, they all are going to get roughly, what is it, 38 in the investment tax credit and 6,000
Right.
or 6 to 7 up from the state.
So everybody's going to apply for the state rebate, and that's easy to get. The federal tax rebate is still not very clearly defined, but it looks like you can't even apply until the project is done. And then you can't get the money until the end of your tax year, just like as if it's a tax credit, right?
Even
So,
with the direct pay system?
Yep.
Really?
oh yeah, it's really, we're wrestling with 2 towns with this right now, and it's really complicated.
Okay, so the town will have an initial outlay, but they
Yes.
can reliably assume that they will get that back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the state rebate, that usually takes a month after completion.
Okay, so there was a proposal that we have revision as the second choice. I think we should vote on that as well.
So moved.
Vote, Rob,
Yes.
Cindy,
No.
no? Dan,
Yes.
voting yes, so we have a yes vote for them as a second. And I will include a justification for the choices and an explanation of what the criteria were.
Cindy, can you explain your no vote? I'm interested.
Sure. Just why pay 20,000 more for an inverter we don't like? Or did I miss something? Solar Edge was,
Oh, no, there's 2 things we don't like on that. We don't like the price. We don't particularly like the equipment. That being said, Revision is a very reputable company. So I would trust them as far as that goes. And they've done a good job on their estimates. In fact, I plan to use their table for payback period to justify these systems to some extent to the board.
That's 13 years.
For full payback.
Yeah.
Didn't catch that.
I come up with that somehow.
I thought it
I
was.
hope I didn't make a mistake, but. I saw that someplace, and I don't know if that was something they said or.
What was the mains price? 120.
106.
Oh, six.
Yeah, it's
Useful.
Yeah, you can see that as well up there.
Yeah, it's in that one there, isn't it?
so 12 years,
12 years, all right.
pretty close.
Yep, it's longer than I would have expected. We will have to adjust this for the lower price from Maine's, which will bring that down, but it'll probably be around 10. Which is what I was expecting.
Yeah, I just thought the
First-
return high for what we're paying. You know, what they put in there and everything.
I'm not following their return.
The amount of time, you know, they would take
Oh, is long,
is long.
Well, the higher price.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
What rate were they calculating with? No,
you mean what electrical rate?
yeah,
Oh, it's in there.
because the rates right now are like just super low.
They are.
Small print.
And if they spike, then,
Yeah, they're low for the next month.
yeah, the payback could be much shorter and the rates go up.
That's, I mean, I would assume you're talking about somewhere between 12 and 14, it's probably closer to 14%, all in, right? Not just the
Yeah.
rate, but the delivery and the transmission. and all the taxes.
I'll have to look at this. It might be
So
that
they were
line of the
16.
value of solar kilowatt hours. This is
38,000.
I think they mentioned it somewhere else. too.
16 cents,
Um,
so that's $6,000
I
a
think it's
year.
in the paragraph of financial overview,
So that's
that paragraph
Is
there,
that before?
$10,000 a year.
before Inflation Reduction
And you've got-
Act and.
First year electricity, first year rec, so it's like.
I think they use .1286.
As a starting value.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah,
like,
kilowatts
put-
behind the meter.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Kilowatt hour used behind meters miles with full value of 13 cents per kilowatt hour. Yeah, so it is higher than the current rate, but the current rate is extremely low.
Right.
So that's probably reasonable, and they're, going to roughly 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Seems like a reasonable value to project, I mean, as much as we can.
Then they calculate that, those paybacks, were they, considering the rebates we'll be getting? Because that 124 turned into something like 80.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they were. They were taking everything into account.
So I did see the number 124 on that sheet you just put up.
Well, I'll go through
That's
this.
before the rebate. Yeah.
Right, so the payback period.
Well, I'm sure they based the payback period on all the credits. Then.
Yeah.
I imagine they wouldn't. do
Yeah,
that.
they showed 30,000 and 8,600, I think. Or something, 6,800.
The 124 is right there at the top.
Yeah, it is.
So they use, I assume,
Well, but here's the tax credit and grantor rebate. Right, this value here and this
Yep.
value here.
okay.
Yeah, so it's in there.
Okay.
They give you their spreadsheet. They do have, an increasing cost per kilowatt hour projected as well. And that's worth noting. Over
Yeah.
the 10-year timeframe, they're estimating it would go up to 15.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which also is not an outrageous assumption.
Yeah, considering that's considering it 28.
Yeah, but it's a projection.
Yeah, that's I mean, the general assumption has been that if you look at the 20-year average, it's 1.5 or 2.5 cents per year.
Right.
You know, they've made a mockery of that number for the last 3 years. So we've gone from 6 to 12
In
to
both
20 to
directions.
8.
Yes, in both directions.
Yeah, it's
Will anybody actually be kind of tracking it real time to say like, oh, rates were high, you paid it off in 6 years? Like, will there be any kind of like tracking of that? Like,
well,
you know?
yeah, there's a data logger. There should be a data logger on anybody's system that allows anybody to.
Is that what you mean, though?
Well,
Data.
But also keeping track of what are the current rates.
Right.
To see what your savings are.
Seeing what our actual
Yeah.
payback.
Yeah.
They only change twice a year, so it's not hard to track.
Yeah.
And I do have a spreadsheet, which I will give you. That,
But does someone actually
I
track
had a
it?
question on this. The town is operating under a power purchase agreement.
Right.
Yes,
right.
When is it up? What are the implications there?
Well, so here's the deal with that. Since we're doing 100% of the load on the building, there's gonna be excess. So you could ignore the excess. Or you could try and get this building out of the contract. And since the town contract probably has a lot of buildings in it,
every building we own.
you should be able to get this building out without too much pain and agony.
Do you know what the terms of the contract are? Is there
I
penalties?
can't exactly tell you the terms and penalties and things. I know it's a year's period, January 1 through December 31st of this current year we're under.
Oh, so
It's
they just renewed.
It's
They
only
just
a 1-year
renewed.
contract.
1-year contract.
That's not a big deal then.
Is this Doug Langdon?
Yes.
You know what the rate was? I know it was pretty
Right
high.
around 10 cents, 10 cents.
It's just an hour 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, these things are tricky because you only you don't get full retail rate for the excess.
Right.
So depending on where the Eversource rate is and where the third party rate is, you can come out ahead or you can get screwed. It's complicated.
What's the rebate on? 85%?
It's the rebate.
No,
Well, they know.
the retail, the rate that you would get off retail.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Well, so the new rate starting in February is 8 cents plus like 3.5 or 4 cents. Give or take. So it's like 12 cents. And I think 14 cents retail, 12 cents for the credit. Somewhere in there. I don't know. I haven't spent the time to figure that out because this dive down to 8 cents has been so precipitous.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised that, there had been no mention of this power purchase agreement in this whole process up until now. It occurred to me
It was done,
that the town is on a power purchase.
I want to say it was November, October, November, something like that, late in the fall.
That we renewed.
Yeah. So I don't remember exact dates right now.
You should have Connor call Doug and ask him.
Okay.
Now, I know in this, a payback of more than 5 years is generally frowned on. Obviously done, but this is payback of 10 to 12 years, pretty much numbers you use. So it begs the question, does this warrant doing the project at all?
I was assuming that a payback of 7 to 10 years was going to be expected, and I did state that. So, we'll have to go through the numbers with the estimate from Maines and see what it comes to.
Yep.
But I think it will be around 10.
I think the assumptions are different for municipalities and for corporate entities. Maybe. I mean, that's for stockholders. The town is just the entity that exists out into the future, not worrying about large pieces of machinery or
Yeah,
Well,
stuff.
part of the reason they cap it is not only tying up the money for that long, but also, technology moves so fast that if it takes you 10 years to pay it off, but you still have the old system at the end of the 10 years, having some level of churn is a good thing.
Yeah, well, that's for typical capital expenditures, but, when you're dealing with power generation, that's, to the churn in 10 years, this will not be a system that's likely to be a good candidate for replacement in 10 years. In 20, yes, not in 10.
So we're not tying up a lot of money doing this. With this as a first payment. We
We're
get
talking about
80,000.
60, right?
What?
After the 60, 80.
Um,
37 plus 6 is, yeah, 7. Actually 7. Yeah. So,
well, remember, there's gonna be some ancillary costs for this no retention.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that's pretty small.
It
The
is small,
town
yeah.
budget is less than a few things.
About $5,000.
No, I mean, compared to the town budget.
Oh.
I'm saying it's.
Right,
Pretty
but
small item.
remember, people will be looking at this.
Oh, yeah, no, obviously gotta justify it somehow. I mean, we all think it's a good idea, but it took 20 years, right? I mean, just as an environmental, just setting an example, obviously it'd be hard to
I
defend.
would not be trying to justify this if it was gonna take 20.
No,
Yeah,
I'm just saying personally,
What's the warranty on the inverters?
well,
And these are very reliable.
So they typically last, if they're giving a warranty of 12, they probably last at least 15 to.
I would expect them to last
Yes.
20.
not sure,
No,
I expect them to last 12 to 15.
really?
Yeah.
You've seen that failure?
No, I just expect that.
Okay. I'm colored by my personal experience with inverters, which has been very good. 25. Without, and replaced without a failure.
Does insurance cover solar for damage from windstorms or
Yes. Yeah, it should be insured just like the buildings.
does it affect does that have to be something the policy change or anything with our insurance? Or-
I don't believe so, but I don't know that for a fact.
So we just want to list it.
Yeah, because there's a value to this.
Yeah.
There'll have to be a rider on the insurance, I would assume.
Yeah, because the value of the investment in
Yes.
the building infrastructure.
Yeah.
But is that a new rider on the insurance that has to be added?
I'm guessing, but
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly has to be added because there's value here of $100,000 or whatever it ends up being,
Right,
that's not on every building.
right.
Right.
Yep. So it has to be added to the insurance.
Right.
I would call it a rider personally.
And there would be
Maybe
an
it's-
added premium.
Yeah.
Small.
I can't imagine it'd be a lot, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
It shouldn't be a lot.
Well, it's worth mentioning.
Looks like the rate is 0.10 cents and 0.1016,
What's that?
just over 10 cents a kilowatt
Which rate?
for this building, for the town building.
So
Oh, that's the
Contract.
the power purchase.
Yeah,
It's a pretty good purchase.
and that was end of October, November. We finalized it.
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to have Connor talk to Doug and find out if we can just pull this building out of it. And if we can't, and it's a 1-year contract, we might just want to wait until September
September.
to install.
Oh, I see.
So then when you go to turn it on in October,
No.
November, getting out of the contract, but they don't care.
Right.
You know, it's just a
How long is the lead time to get equipment?
couple of days.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no supply chain shortages unless you want transformers.
Yeah, there's
Wow,
Actually, that was the item where there was another kick-in from one of these. What is the likelihood that the transformer services might be upgraded?
That's pretty unlikely.
Because that, you know, it's not a huge expense, but it's.
Yeah.
Um,
Other things, I'm still hearing 6 months. Order it and maybe 6 months before you get it in. On some other items.
Yeah,
other stuff.
We're in another one of those cycles where a whole bunch of big projects must have gone offline because the price of panels has dropped like a rock again.
Well, there is such a glut of panels at the moment.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. And none of these are made in the USA, correct?
no,
No.
It was weird.
Nothing.
One of the vendors, I believe it was,
right.
said that the panels were, Silfab panels were made in the US, but as of now, they're not. As far as I know.
Nothing. Fracking's not, inverters aren't. Nothing.
The wrapping's not either.
All the old one was made in Mexico.
So I think that any prospect that we had of building that.
Yeah. I figured that much.
So, but here's the interesting thing about that. We may be eligible for the extra 10% because,
Labor issues.
right, prevailing wages, which these guys use prevailing wages. So, since there is no American content anywhere, they're making huge waivers for the equipment. So I'll look into that some more. We got a couple towns that are working on the prevailing wage part, and we're not, again, there's no American content, so.
So that could be somebody's near $10,000.
Well, it'd be another 10%. This is no guarantee that we can get it, but I think that's where we are right now because there's no American content.
Yeah.
And if you're using prevailing wages, that's part of what the government wants.
I will mention this as a possible, but not one.
Right, that's the best.
Okay.
Don't we need a vote on the first choice for the record?
We did.
I think we did.
For the record, I'm leaving, so you can.
I mean, just, maybe it's consensus. I'm saying I don't recall that we voted.
We did vote on the first one.
So
Okay.
this revision.
You voted yes.
Okay, yeah. I thought we were voting on the second one and the.
We then voted on the second one.
Revision is your second, right?
Yeah, just want to make sure
We
we have
can
it.
vote again.
No.
You may
Yeah.
proceed, Jack.
And do we have a record? I mean, I don't know.
This is being recorded. Yeah. Did anyone else have any other issues to bring up in regards to this? I didn't want to hold a regular meeting tonight, so I really want to limit it to this issue. No?
No, I think, I have no worries about like Jack's connection to them. I just want to make sure that we cover the bases to make sure that that's clear to anybody else.
I spoke to Connor.
Actually, and he was okay with the.
He was willing to go further than I was. I wanted to make really certain.
Okay.
That, by not having Jack involved in the bid and not having him involved in the vote. And I will personally state that his purpose here is technical expertise.
Yeah.
And experience.
Yeah. He has no financial gain or connection to it and all that.
No.
In that case,
Okay,
Perfect.
good night, gentlemen.
I'll probably go rack my brains. I'm trying to emulate this, spreadsheet to some extent. See where our payback comes out.
Yeah.
Dan, Cindy, you good?
All set. Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Yeah,
Paul.
I am reclining. I don't mind telling the truth on that.
Don't fall asleep.
We're gonna sign out. Talk to you later.
All right.